Today's class will be given by His Grace Mahavishnu Prabhuji on Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.1. Hare Prabhuji, you can please take over the call, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. We cannot hear you, Prabhuji.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Prabhuji.
Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddha Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvari Pacharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarini Jaya Jaya Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudherayat Nasa Prayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 3, text number 1, chapter entitled Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. I will read the Sanskrit and go into the translation and purport.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, can you come closer to this phone? We cannot hear you very well.
I
Thank
see.
you. Hare Krishna.
How is that? Sudha vidvishata evam kalo vaidriyamanayo chamatu svasirasyapi samahanatu chaktame. Acharya continued. In this manner, the tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long period. Purport. The previous chapter has already explained that Vidura questioned the sage Maitreya as to the cause of the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha. Another question is why the strife between Daksha and his son-in-law caused Sati to destroy her body. The chief reason for Sati's giving up her body was that her father, Daksha, began another sacrificial performance to which Lord Shiva was not invited at all. Generally, when any sacrifice is performed, although each and every sacrifice is intended to pacify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, all the demigods, especially Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and the other principal demigods, such as Indra and Chandra, are invited, and they take part. It is said that unless all the demigods are present, no sacrifice is complete. But in the tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha began another yajna performance, to which Lord Shiva is not invited. Daksha was the chief progenitor employed by Lord Brahma, and he was a son of Lord Brahma. So he had a high position and was also very proud. It is pride that is the problem here. It is being picked up and concerned and completely centered on his own achievements, his position, because in effect, Daksha was after Lord Brahma, he was the second in command of the universe, if you will. That was his highest position, afforded him that exalted position. So there is pride. Here is the problem. We're going to go into pride, particularly how difficult it is and how insidious and enemy it is to those of us who are practicing Bhakti Yoga and devotional service. Pride is particularly detrimental to our Krishna consciousness. And it's going to get a little bit complicated, so if you have a pen and paper, I would really suggest that you take notes, because we're going to try to pull this apart, get to the nuts and bolts of what pride is and how we can overcome it in a very practical manner, because it is a very serious issue. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt, Prabhuji, but we are having very hard time to hear you. Your voice is very soft. We cannot hear you, Prabhuji.
Okay, let me see if I can do something with this phone.
Yeah.
Is that working any better?
Yes. Now it's much better.
Okay, let's try this then. So I would like to say, because this is going to get a bit complicated, we're going to really try to get into the details of understanding pride and how to overcome pride. I strongly suggest that we take notes as we go along, and also for questions. If you have any questions as I'm sharing all of this, write them down so that towards the end we can efficiently discuss, ask, and answer questions. If this works for you, if you have pen and paper ready. If not, so be it. We'll go as thoroughly as we can in the amount of time provided. The first issue, and the first thing we must take note of, is the principle or the fact that we are Ananda Maya Prasad, right? As the Christians say, we are created in the image of God. Krishna is Ananda Maya, right? The pleasure energy, the pleasure potency. Krishna is always seeking or is pleasure seeking. He is the embodiment of pleasure. We are also, the Jivatma, we are also, the living entity is also Ananda Maya. We are inherently, constitutionally, pleasure seeking by nature. We are interested in and will always move towards experiencing pleasure, like water always seeks the lowest level. Similarly, the Jivatma, we, the living entity, are Ananda Maya. We always seek to experience pleasure. That's our very nature. As we are parts and parcels of the Supreme, Lord Krishna, Krishna is also Ananda Maya. So we share this quality with Krishna. So the fact that we seek pleasure is not the problem. The problem is that we are conditioned. And in our conditioned state, this Ananda Maya, this tendency to seek pleasure, is expressed through material energy, para prakriti. In other words, we try to experience happiness, we try to experience pleasure through the six senses and the mind, the material nature, through eyes, ears, touch, taste, and so on. This is how we try to experience or live, if you will, this Ananda Maya quality, inherent quality of the Jivatma. Because we are conditioned, we do this through the material senses. And this creates a problem. The problem it creates is obvious. It is birth, death, old age, and disease. It is samsara. When we try to fulfill, when we try to live or experience Ananda, pleasure, express this through our conditioned nature, through the material senses, then that entraps us in samsara. We take birth after birth after birth, trying to experience and express this constitutional nature of Ananda Maya, our quality of pleasure seeking. So the problem is not Ananda Maya, the problem is our attempt to experience Ananda through material nature. So what's the solution to this? Obviously the solution is to endeavor to experience pleasure or to express Ananda Maya through not conditioned material energy, but through spiritual energy, apara prakriti, through spiritual nature. By experiencing or expressing Ananda Maya through our spiritual nature, through spiritual energy, apara prakriti, then we are not entrapped in samsara. Right? If we express Ananda Maya through the engagement in spiritual activities and spiritual engagement, then we're not trapped in samsara. But the key point to remember, to understand, is we are conditioned. And it is in that conditioned state that we try to express or experience Ananda through the material senses. Now this causes a problem. As devotees, we take vows of initiation. We try to limit our enjoyment of the senses, or even curtail entirely the enjoyment of our senses. We're not interested in sense gratification. But this creates a problem. If we are not interested, or we try to minimize and eliminate sense enjoyment, then from where do we get our enjoyment? We are Anandamaya. We must experience pleasure in some way, shape, or form. So if we do not do this, if we do not experience happiness through the material senses, then we must experience happiness in some way. Now, as devotees, as aspiring bhakti yogis, this can be a very big problem. This is why we have been chanting our rounds, we have been going to morning programs, engaging in service for 10, 20, 30, 40, even now 15 years for us, this kind of events. We've been doing this, and we see many of our fellow devotees fall away from the strict path of bhakti yoga. And oftentimes the question is, oh, Mahavishnu, why? Well, we hear the question, not just to myself, but we hear the question, why is it that this devotee has fallen away from the strict path of bhakti yoga? And we know there's a famous quote Prabhupada said, we should not be surprised by who leave, we should be surprised by who stay on the path of bhakti yoga. The reason why so many fall away, the reason why it's very difficult for us to remain fixed in our devotional activities is very simple. It goes back to the point of Anandamaya. We are pleasure seeking. If we do not experience pleasure, or we do not try to derive pleasure from the material senses, we must, absolutely must, derive pleasure and satisfaction from our devotional life. Machita sarva durvanino prasada tarishisi. Right? No. Machita magatapana bodhayan parasparam. Katayan tasmannitam pisyanti charramanti cha. Right? The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, Krishna says. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. That is a very, it is one of the most important verses we can possibly commit to memory. My devotees derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. It is through our engagement in Krishna consciousness that we derive this pleasure. Anandamaya becomes experienced, it's expressed through our spiritual activities. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. If you're not going to try to enjoy the material senses, we must experience great satisfaction and bliss in our devotional life. Why is this an imperative? Why is this a must? Because we are Anandamaya. The living entity, the Jivatma, is Anandamaya. That is our constitutional nature to seek happiness. As a conditioned soul, we try to seek happiness through the senses. But we are bhakti yogis, trying to do away with sense gratification, because sense gratification merely entraps us in samsara and all of the miseries that come along with it. In that way, we then have to derive satisfaction, great satisfaction and bliss from our spiritual practices. So if we are not experiencing great satisfaction from our japa, if we're not experiencing great satisfaction in attending the morning program, if we're not experiencing great satisfaction in serving in many different ways, if we're not experiencing such great satisfaction, what is going to happen? We're going to stop.
Prabhuji.
Yes?
Prabhuji, your voice is still not clear. Prabhuji, can you do something with the phone?
Okay, hold on just for a moment, please.
Yeah, now it's clear. Now you are speaking, it's clear. But when you do class, it goes up and down.
I see. How is this?
Yeah, it's very clear, Prabhuji. It's good.
Okay. So we'll try to continue like this then. Yeah, so the problem is that if we are not experiencing great satisfaction and bliss in our devotional activities, we will stop engaging in those activities. If we do not experience happiness and satisfaction in our japa, what's going to happen? At the first distraction of our senses, we're going to quit our japa and engage in some material activity. If we do not derive great satisfaction and bliss from serving in the temple, serving the deities, serving the devotees, if we do not derive great satisfaction and bliss in those activities, we will stop performing those activities, and we will seek satisfaction through the senses. So now the question becomes, well, why is it that we do not experience great satisfaction and bliss from our japa, from serving in the temple, from cooking, cleaning in the temple, from serving other Vaishnavas? Why is it we do not experience great satisfaction and bliss, even though we have been doing it for 10, 20, 30, 40, and now 50 years? And still, there is no great satisfaction and no bliss. Why is this? The answer is, and note this down, please, it's very important. The answer why we do not experience great satisfaction and bliss is aparad. It is due to aparad that we do not experience great satisfaction and bliss in our sadhana and seva. There are 4 types of aparad. We all know this, but let's note this down for those of you who do not. There is dhamma aparad. There is seva aparad. There is nam aparad. And there is Vaishnava aparad. Dhamma aparad is offenses to the holy dham. The holy dham is not just Mayapur, Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri, Rameshwaram, and so on. The holy dham is wherever there is Krishna and his devotees. So the temples in the West are also the holy dham. My spiritual master, His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, gave a very, very powerful lesson, at least for me, in that he passed away in the holy dham in the United States, the state of Pennsylvania, the holy dham of Gitanagari. And he specifically said he would pass away in Gitanagari in the United States to show by example to his disciples that Krishna, where there is Krishna, where there is Krishna devotees, that is the holy dham. So we should not, in fact, this is dhamma aparad, to think that temples outside of Jagannath Puri, Vrindavan, Mayapur, Rameshwaram, and so on, temples outside these areas, temples in the west and the east and north and south, these are not holy dham. That is dhamma aparad. Where there is Krishna and his devotees, that is the holy dham. So dhamma aparad is having a limited view of these other places where there is Krishna and the Lord. Dhamma aparad is also where we go, where we have a mentality that we're going to go to the holy dham, to the temple, simply for our sense gratification. Right? We go to the holy dham because we enjoy the Sunday feast prasadam. Right? We go to the holy dham, and I was actually in Mayapur. So many times I hear devotees, oh, why do you come? Oh, I come for the festival. They want to attend the Mayapur festival. There are even some that will go to the Mayapur festival because they're looking for a husband or for a wife. That is dhamma aparad. Yasyama buddhi kona petratike svadvukha jadi yat tirtha buddhi salinena kari janeshu abhigeshu sa eva goka. Right? I believe that's in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. That one who goes to the tirtha, the holy places, and only sees a body of water, but does not go there to hear and to serve, then that person is no better than a cow or an ass. Right? There is certainly benefit accrued to that person who goes to the holy dham for some material reason. Obviously, there is benefit, right? The monkeys of Vrindavan are great, great saintly personalities. They will receive, obviously, some benefit from living and being in the holy dham. However, for those of us who are in the human form of life, to go to the holy dham for material purposes, that is dhamma aparad.
Seva aparat. Seva aparat is not appreciating seva. I run a Gurukul here in Northborough, Massachusetts, where we've opened the temple here. We have 15 students, and all of the curriculum that we provide in the Gurukul, it's mandatory. They must attend, and as the older they get, we have some more classes that they must attend. But then we have what's designed a Sevaka program. Sevaka is for those children who want to do service in the temple. This is not mandatory. This has to be done by, they have to volunteer. The kids have to volunteer. And of course, many kids love to, get involved and do things, engage in certain activities. But for the Sevaka program, the children must volunteer. Not only must they volunteer, they must develop a qualification. So if they want to volunteer to become a Sevaka, they have to every day, because I don't have the children, it's not an ashram Gurukula, I only have them 2 days a week for a total of 4 or 5 hours. But every day at home, they must spend at least 5 minutes chanting every morning. And the parents let me know whether or not they're chanting. Because they have to be taught, they have to be trained that seva is a privilege. The defining characteristic of seva is a loving relationship. Seva aparad is when we see activities as a chore, as a duty, or we want some benefit, or we are afraid of the temple president, so we're doing service, or we want to have prasadam, so we come and we call, so people don't look at us sideways. We come for prasadam for the Sunday feast, right? It is certainly beneficial, that type of seva, but it is mishra. It is mishra bhakti, right? That type of seva is mishra. At the beginning, that is okay. But to continue in that manner without developing a love for Krishna, even if we don't like the service itself, but we do it out of a loving relationship with Krishna, then it becomes seva. So the training the Gurukul students go through is that you have to earn the right to engage in seva. Seva is a privilege. When I was in the Mayapur Gurukul, one of the services we had to do was to serve the sannyasis and GBC devotees prasadam when they came for the GBC meetings. And only those boys from the Gurukula who had earned the privilege of such service were allowed to serve. For many, I was in the Mayapur Gurukula for over a decade. For half of that time, I did not earn the privilege to serve. It took me many years to earn the privilege to serve prasadam senior devotees. So when we have these activities and we do not come to them with a mood of loving service and appreciation, recognizing the privilege it is to serve, that is seva aparad. Again, it is mishra. There is benefit. There is always benefit. But to continue in that manner without developing love for the devotees and for Krishna, whatever service it may be, it becomes seva aparad. Then there's nam aparad. Just earlier, we heard the 10 aparad, the 10 offenses of the holy name of the Lord. We won't go into detail there. And then there is Vaishnava aparad. Right? We know from the spiritual master, but any Vaishnava, be distracted by their physical appearance, be distracted by external considerations, that's Vaishnava aparad. Obviously, to offend, insult, is Vaishnava aparad. Also in the Bhagavad Gita, right? Apiche siddharacharo bhajate mamananyapak sadhureva samandavya samyak devasita, right? And even if someone is the most sinful of all sinners, if he is situated in the abode of transcendental knowledge, he is to be considered saintly because he or she is properly fixed in their determination. So even when there is some external discrepancy, still the Vaishnavas, the devotees, are to be considered saintly because they are endeavoring in Krishna consciousness. So devotees make a mistake if we criticize, that is Vaishnava aparad. Unless, of course, we are the leader, we are the bhakti leader, we are the guru, we are the temple commander, and we have to correct. Then it is our duty to correct. That is one thing. We won't get into that's a whole nother leadership discussion. But if it is not our duty to correct and we criticize, that is Vaishnava aparad, even if there's a mistake on their part. It's very, very important to understand this. So now, a quick recap. Why are we not experiencing Tushanticha, Ramanticha, right? Why are we not experiencing great satisfaction and bliss in our sadhana, in our seva? The reason why we are not is because of aparad. These are the 4 types of aparad we've gone over. Now, just to go through them a little bit more, is aparad, these 4 types hamper our ability to experience great satisfaction and bliss. But what is very important is the how we eliminate Vaishnava aparad, or all aparads. You see, Kam aparad, Nam aparad, and Seva aparad are critical. But even more than those 3, Vaishnava aparad is the most severe and the most important one we must eliminate. The reason why this is so is because Vaishnava aparad is the key to understanding the other aparads. Let me explain this. If I permit Dham aparad to the holy Dham, to the places of pilgrimage, the temples, there is no feedback from the temple. The temple is not going to swallow me up if I engage in Dham aparad. If I engage in Seva aparad, I'm in the kitchen peeling potatoes, and I am committing Seva aparad because I don't have the proper frame of mind. The potato is not going to leap out of my hand and hit me over the head, say, Mahavishnu, you're performing Seva aparad, get your act together. If I'm chanting, and I'm engaging in Nam aparad, my bead bag is not going to jump up and hit me over the head, saying, Mahavishnu, you're engaged in Nam aparad, get your act together. It is only through Vaishnava that we get feedback, that we understand that we are engaging in any of these aparads. It is in the association of devotees that is required to even know if we are engaging in the aparad. Otherwise, we have no idea. We have no idea when we are engaging in Nam aparad, no idea when we're engaging in Sim aparad, no idea when we're engaging in Dham aparad without the guidance of Vaishnavas. And we certainly have no idea if we're engaging in Vaishnava aparad if we are constantly offending Vaishnavas. So Vaishnavas, this Vaishnava aparad is the key to understanding and to eliminating all of the other aparads that we may engage in. Now this is very important because if we engage in Vaishnava aparad, what happens? It's very easy to understand. If I, say for example, many of you may be parents. If I insult, abuse your child, what are you going to do? Obviously, you're going to remove me from the presence, from the company of your child. The same thing happens in our spiritual life. If we engage in Vaishnava aparad, Maya, the energy of the Lord, will remove us from the association of those devotees. And this is for our own good. This removal from the association of devotees happens in very subtle and very innocuous ways, very hard to understand. For example, we'll get a promotion in a part of the country where there are no devotees, right? We have to move to a place where our family needs us, but takes 2 hours to get to the nearest devotee association. This is how the energy of the Lord removes us from the association of devotees so that we do not commit Vaishnava aparad. Because Vaishnava aparad destroys our ability to understand, to link all the other operands, and it destroys our ability to experience pleasure, great satisfaction, and bliss when we engage in our sadhana and seva. So the energy of the Lord removes us from the association of Vaishnavas until we gain some level of purification where we can be readmitted to the association and the company of Vaishnavas. But this is a very, very detrimental situation. When we are removed from the association of Vaishnavas, we then do not have the feedback necessary to know when we are engaging in the other aparads, nam, tam, and seva, because there's no devotee to tell us that we are engaging in these aparads. So what happens? We have no idea we're engaging in these various aparads, and because we have no idea we're engaged in these aparads, we do not get a taste. We do not experience great satisfaction and bliss from our sadhana and our seva. And we go on for years thinking we are engaged in spiritual activities, when in actuality we are performing aparad, we are receiving no taste in our devotional activities. And what happens? We stop engaging in those devotional activities and we fall away from the path of devotional service. So the key is Vaishnava aparad. Now, of course, we're talking about pride. Vaishnava aparad happens because of pride. We create offenses against Vaishnavas because we are proud. It is this pride that is the problem. We see in the particular story of Daksha. Daksha is proud because he is the son of Brahma. He is the second in command of the universe after Lord Brahma. His very name means expert. He is immensely proud of what he's accomplished, of his position, of who he is. And because of his pride, what does he do? Vaishnava aparad. All Vaishnava aparad stems from our pride. What is the cure for pride? The cure for pride is humility. That is the cure for pride. If we are humble, we are not controlled by pride. So now what is humility? There are many definitions of humility. We'll focus on one for today's discussion, which is one I particularly like. Humility, or to be humble, is not to think less of oneself, but to think of oneself less. Do we understand that? Humility is not to say, oh, I'm a terrible person, oh, I'm this, I'm that, talk down to oneself. Humility is not to think less of oneself, but to think of oneself less. In other words, to stop being self-centered. To stop being egocentric, thinking the entire world revolves around ourselves. Now, oftentimes humility is misunderstood to be weak, right? To be humble is to be weak. It is to be, or to be lacking in self-esteem, to be lacking in self-confidence. This is erroneous. It cannot be further from the truth. To be humble, to think less, to think of oneself less. In other words, to think that we're not the center of the world, requires a level of strength. It requires fearlessness. It requires personal happiness. Let's explore this a little bit. I must be mindful of the time. Let's explore this a little bit. When you have a toothache, where is your consciousness? It's on you and it's on you alone. When you are in a crisis, a financial crisis, where is your consciousness? It is on you and it's on you alone. When you're experiencing a difficulty in your married life, where is your consciousness? It's on you and it's on you alone. When you are distressed and unhappy, where is your consciousness? It's on you and it's on you alone. Humility is just the opposite. Humility means our consciousness is not on ourselves. In order for our consciousness not to be on ourselves, we must be pain-free. We must be free of pain. We must be free of fear. We must be free of distress. We must be free of unhappiness. So in other words, humility requires us to be strong, confident, self-assured, satisfied, happy. Because it's only in that frame of mind are we able to then see others around us. Are we able to give our attention to others? Humility is requires an incredible amount of strength, an incredible amount of self-confidence to be humble. It is only the person who is weak, afraid, unhappy, that cannot live in humility because they are entirely focused on themselves. And when one is entirely focused on themselves, they become daksha. They become proud. Look at me. I am this. I am that. This is ahankar. Aham, I, kar, do. I am in command. I am the proprietor. Look at me. And then it fall into Vaishnava Parad. So humility is the cure. Where there is humility, there cannot be pride. So we must develop humility. The development of humility means we must be happy, fearless, strong, courageous. Because only when we have these character traits can our attention be outward, can be focused on others. Now the question becomes, how do we achieve humility? How do I experience, or how do I develop these qualities necessary for humility? In a word, it's called Atma Rama. Atma Rama means self-satisfied. Atma Rama means receiving pleasure, satisfaction from the self, the spiritual self, not from the body, not from our physical appearance, not from our titles, not from our education or bank balance. Atma Rama means experiencing satisfaction from the Atma, from the self, from Brahman, right? This is Atma Rama. So only on the stage of Atma Rama, when we are self-satisfied, can we live in humility. But now we are bhakti yogis. This is now an even bigger problem. I really do hope you've noted all this down. As we can see, this is a natural progression. This Atma Rama is necessary to live in humility, to have the strength, the satisfaction, the self-confidence to live in humility is Atma Rama. It's necessary. But the problem is, we are bhakti yogis. And Atma Rama pertains to Brahmavadis. Atma Rama, as we know, is described by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Atma Rama is an impersonalist concept. It is a concept of, we have ahankar. Right? Ahankar means my title, my activities, my qualifications, material qualifications. This is ahankar. Atma Rama is basically the same thing on a spiritual level. I am Brahman, aham brahmasmi. My happiness comes from within. This is Brahmavad. This is not what bhakti yogis are interested in. So now we have a conundrum. We want to eliminate pride. Because if we have pride, we commit Vaishnava Aparad. If we commit Vaishnava Aparad, then we are removed from the association of Vaishnavas. If we are removed from the association of Vaishnavas, then we are completely unaware of all of our aparads we may commit, Dham, Nam, and Seva. When we commit all these aparads, unable to know whether or not we're doing so, then we no longer experience great satisfaction and bliss from our devotional activities, and then we fall away from those activities. So Atmarama seems to be the key, right? But the problem is, Atmarama, the principle of Atmarama is a Brahmavad principle. It is for those who want to solely focus on themselves, their spiritual selves, not the material body, but the Atma, Brahman. We are Bhakti yogis. That is not what we're interested in. So now we are stuck. Atmarama is not for us. So does it mean we cannot develop humility? No, absolutely not. So there's Atmarama for the Brahmavadis. For Bhakti yogis, there is Hare Rama. Hare Rama is, Rama means pleasure, pleasure potency. Hare is the Lord. It is Hare Rama. It is in a relationship with Krishna, a relationship with Krishna's devotees, where we develop satisfaction and thereafter humility. Atmarama is for the Brahmavadis. Hare Rama. Activities in relation to the Supreme. That is where we gain our satisfaction. That is where we gain our Rama, through the internal potency of the Lord, Hare Rama. So now all of what I've said to this point has all been theory. Now what does this mean practically? It's nice to say Hare Rama, okay, yes, we're supposed to engage in the service of the Lord, but what does this mean on a practical level? On a day-to-day level? It's taken directly from the nectar of instruction. Bhati pratigrinati guyamakti prachati bhunkti pujayate chaivam sadvidam pratilakshanam. The 6 interactions between devotees to give presents and to receive presents, gifts, to offer prasadam, foodstuffs, and to receive foodstuffs, to inquire confidentially, and to speak confidentially. Not just prajopa, but to speak deeply, have deep conversations, meaningful conversations with other devotees, to share prasadam with other devotees, to give and receive gifts from other devotees. In other words, relationships with other devotees. This is how we engage in this principle of Hare Rama, if you will. The pleasure, spiritual pleasure, the Hare Rama, the spiritual pleasure, spiritual satisfaction is in this engagement. There's 6 types of engagement between one devotee and another. As we become more engaged in these 6 different ways with devotees, then we live and exist in humility. The more we exist in humility, the more pride diminishes. So these 6 interactions, interchanges between devotees, the dati, pratigrinati, guyamati, prachati, etc., these are the key, the linchpin in our devotional life, in our devotional development, our devotional growth. Giving and receiving gifts, sitting and taking prasadam together, very powerful activities, doing such, and having deep, meaningful conversations with one another. But now, in a way, we have come full circle, in that we are dealing with devotees, we're dealing with people again. The risk that we may engage in Vaishnava aparad while engaging in these interchanges also arises. There's a nice story between, I don't remember the characters precisely, the Goswamis, I forget who they were. If you know the story, you can share with us the personalities involved. But I'll share the story. It was one Goswami in Vrindavan who was sitting on the bank of Radhakund, And this Goswami was meditating. And in his meditation, very deep meditation, he was deriving great satisfaction and bliss from his meditation. And he was given this darshan of this lila between Radha and Krishna. In this particular lila that this Goswami was witnessing in his meditation, it was the gopis, they were picking flowers. And they were particularly trying to pick kadamba flowers. Those of you who have been to India or grew up in India, you know the kadamba flower grows on a tree, right? It doesn't grow, many flowers grow on bushes or plants or so on, but kadamba flower is one of those few flowers that grow on enormous trees. So it can be at sometimes very difficult and hard to pick. Radharani and the gopis were trying to pick kadamba flowers from a very large tree. And again, those of you who know kadamba flowers, beautiful flowers, they are the shape of a sphere, a round ball. They have hundreds of small yellow petals, beautiful, beautiful flowers, very fragrant. Actually, in Mayapur Gurukul, we used to have to pick flowers during kadamba season to make garlands for Radha Madhava. So it was a wonderful experience also to hear the story and to go through it myself as well as a Gurukul student. But in this Leela that this Goswami was witnessing, Radharani wanted to pick the kadamba flowers, but it's a huge tree. And she could not climb. And she and the gopis were trying to pick kadamba flowers, and Krishna and the gopis, they were standing nearby and they were laughing and teasing the gopis. Finally, Radharani became upset, and she goes to Krishna, "Dear Krishna, you call yourself Gopishwar. You are the Lord of all the gopis, but Ishvara means you want to be the controller, but you also have to help. Just because you think you're the Ishvara, you just cannot sit and laugh. You're supposed to protect, you're supposed to help, you're supposed to support. This is what Ishvara means. Not just you just sit and laugh and tease and make jokes." So she was very upset. Krishna became embarrassed because he was there with all his friends and he's being chastised by Radharani, and then the gopis were laughing at Krishna. So Krishna became a little embarrassed. So he's thinking, okay, I'll show you. So Krishna says, okay, you want help? I'll help you. So Krishna, of course, as we know in the Korean, Krishna's always tightening his belt, right? So Krishna tightens his belt, climbs up the tree, and calls down to Radharani, which branch do you want? Which flowers do you want? And Radharani points to a particular branch. Krishna stands on the branch, and the weight of his body, he pushes the branch down so Radharani can pick the flower. So again, if those of you who know kadamba flowers, even when you can, they're very hard to pick. It's not like picking a flower from a small rose bush or something. These things grow on a tree. Oftentimes we have to use scissors to cut the flower because you basically have to cutting it's a tree, the limb of a tree almost. So it's quite difficult. So Radharani is trying to pick this kadamba flower, and she's telling Krishna, bend it lower, bend it lower. So Krishna is putting all his weight, putting it down, pushing the branch down. Radharani is grabbing it, pulling it, tugging. And then Krishna is waiting for her to get a nice, good grip. And when Radharani gets a good grip on the tree, Krishna pulls his weight off the branch. And the branch flies in the air, and Radharani, who was holding on quite tight to try and get this kadamba flower, also flies through the air, and the tangles fly, the hair flies, and everything, and she tumbles over. And everyone starts laughing. Everyone starts laughing. Krishna's laughing and everything. And Goswami, who's hearing this darshan, he also laughs. Because it's a comical, it's a humorous Leela. He laughs. And in the darshan, Leela disappears from his meditation. Instantaneously. Disappears. His meditation hasn't broken. The darshan is gone. And he's trying to recapture the darshan of the Leela, any Leela, whether it's this one or any Leela, he's trying to recapture. He cannot. He's still in his meditation, still endeavoring. He cannot. After some time, he gives up. He opens his eyes, he comes out of his meditation, the Goswami. The sun is setting, he's in Radhakund. And he goes through, I was told, I'm saying it was Rupa and Sanatana, I'm not sure, I don't want to quote that. If you know, then please share with us during the question and answer session. Otherwise, do your own research and share with us on another date. I was told it was Rupa Sanatana, but at another time I was told it was two other Goswamis. But anyway, whoever it was. So the first Goswami, he goes to this other Goswami in Vrindavan, and he says, all right, and he tells the story. in his meditation, he tells the Leela, and he says, during the most humorous part of it, the Leela broke. The darshan broke. I could not get it back. And the second Goswami says, why don't you go around all of the different Vaishnavas here in Vrindavan and ask them if you have committed some offense to them. And the first Goswami says, well, I was just sitting at Radha and I have not seen anybody the entire day. How can I commit? And the other Goswami says, anyways, you go to all the devotees in Vrindavan, Radhakund area, and you just ask. So the first Goswami, he goes around and he's asking all of the Brajbasis, the Rambasis, everyone, Babaji's, have I committed any offense? He tells him that no, nothing. He comes to one Babaji, and he says, Babaji Maharaj, please, he tells his story. And he says, in the middle of the most humorous part, it disappeared. And I just wanted to know if there's anything I've done to offend you. I've told to ask for information about this. And the Babaji goes, no, you've not offended. You're not offended. Nothing's wrong. And the Goswami could realize that Babaji was holding back. So he says, please, Babaji, tell me, is there something? And Babaji says, well, actually there is one thing. I came to Radhakund to bathe, and I saw you were sitting there, and I moved to one side. I did not want to disturb you. But as you see here, I have some handicap. My legs are not, I have polio, whatever the affliction was. I have a handicap, and as I was struggling to get into Radhakund, I slipped in the mud, and I fell in the water. When I fell in the water, I saw you were laughing, because I fall in the water. And I know it's my material body, I should not be offended, and what can I say, I have a little bit of ego, please forgive, it's no big deal. But it was just that little feeling I had, and I just left. I did not want to disturb you. It is that realization that Goswami realized that it was that aparad that instantaneously interrupted his great satisfaction and bliss in experiencing Krishna Lila. So 3 things we learn from this story. The first thing is the aparad, when we commit aparad, instantaneously, our growth, our maturity, our development in bhakti yoga is interrupted instantaneously. This particular Goswami, because he was visiting or witnessing Lila, he understood it was instantaneous. We're not witnessing Krishna Lila, so we don't understand it instantaneous, but rest assured, when we offend devotees, instantaneously, our development is interrupted. That's the first thing to learn from this story. The second thing to learn from this story is that we may not even know we have offended devotees. We may not even know we have offended devotees. And still, we have to be cautious. The third thing we learn from this story is that even when we don't even know we've offended devotees, our spiritual life has been interrupted, our spiritual experience has been interrupted. However, there is a great redemptive quality of devotional service, and that is forgiveness. We must have the humility to seek and ask for forgiveness. This is, again, Daksha had to lose his head and receive the head of a goat to develop humility. Humility is absolutely necessary because we are going to offend devotees, even when we don't want to, even when we try not to. The story of King Mriga in the Krishna book, right? He was giving in charity, one cow wandered and came back, and King Mriga gave it again to a different Brahmin, and there was some fight, right? Some disagreement, some argument. We may not even know we've committed aparad. But the redemptive quality is if we have humility, we can ask for and seek forgiveness. And in that forgiveness, we are once again well on our way towards deriving great satisfaction and bliss from our sadhana and our seva.
Okay.
So we'll start to wrap up there. As we see the nature of pride, how pride causes us to commit Vaishnava aparad. When we commit Vaishnava aparad, we are removed from the company, the association of Vaishnavas. When we are removed from the association of Vaishnavas, we no longer have the understanding, the knowledge, the guidance to avoid all of the aparads. When we cannot avoid, or we do not minimize these aparads, then we do not derive great satisfaction and bliss from our devotional lives, our devotional service. And because we are Anandamaya, if we do not experience great satisfaction and joy from our devotional lives, we're going to stop our sadhana and seva, and we're going to try to achieve satisfaction in the material arena.
Oh, we got to go. All right, coffee, please.
Yes.
So this is the difficulty that we face, the challenge that we face, and the significant, the critical, the negative effects of pride. For devotees, overcoming pride is developing humility. To develop humility, we do so not by the principle of Atmarama, that is for Brahmavadis. We develop humility by engaging in the 6 exchanges between devotees, developing a loving relationship with devotees. When we sit together and have prasadam with one another. I remember, I'll end on this one last story. It was, I believe, 1985-86. And it was in Mayapur, and it was a flood. I was a young boy. I had never experienced such a thing in my entire life. And it was the night before the flood was supposed to be, All India Radio had given the warning that there's a flood coming in this area of Bengal. Everyone take care. So we spent the entire day preparing the Gurukula, and that evening the electricity went out, as was the usual. It was not so much of a problem, but the electricity went out, and we were preparing to move the Gurukula to the guest houses of the Mayapur compound. And it was our last night at the Gurukula before we shifted to the temple, and there was no electricity, and we were all very, very afraid. So we were there, and we were sitting having prasad. We were having milk and puffed rice. And the teachers, many of the teachers of the time had actually left already because the flood was coming, so they had either moved. Many of the teachers were from Western countries, from going to the West. And there were literally maybe 2 or 3 teachers with the remainder of us at the Gurukula. And one of the teachers was Gurukula Maharaj, Bhakti Purnaswami. And we were all sitting in the Gurukula, prasadam hall, and he was sitting there having evening prasadam with us. And it was the most powerful and most assuring experiences I'd had, particularly because we were all, many of us children, were beset with fear. And the fact that he was there with us, having prasadam with us, that sharing was incredibly powerful. I remember it even to this day. We know even in modern society, we know that the principle of sharing prasadam together, eating together, is a very, very bonding experience. These experiences can be used in developing strong relationships in our devotional life. So I'll end there. If we have any questions, now is the time that we can go over them and try to answer them as good as possible. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, the Pranam all goes to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Very, very wonderful class, Prabhuji. Very, very nice information. Like, we should not commit any aparadha, and how nicely you explain about all aparadhas, especially Vaishnava aparadha. So, thank you very much, Prabhuji. I request all the devotees, if they have any question or comments for Prabhuji, they can go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much. Very enlightening lecture. I learned a lot. I wish the audio could be better. There was a lot of disturbance. So I look forward to hearing more from you, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I will try to be in a better place next time for the next class to make sure I have a good connection and there's less disturbances. My apologies for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Dandavat. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much, Prabhu. It's a very, very nice class, especially about the aparadha. You explained four kinds of aparadha. Prabhuji, I have one question regarding this. Prabhuji, it happens because sometime when I'm feeling chanting very my mind's very focused way, or everything I do, reading, I like whatever time I have, I just want to use for Krishna. Sometimes it's not happen, because especially it happens because of offenses, Prabhu. I need to go through all the offenses, avoid. I know that I commit so many offenses, 4 offenses, all the offenses I commit, but it because of the offenses it happens, Prabhu.
I'm not quite sure I understand the question. The question is that you do not have enough time to engage in service?
No, Prabhu. Sometimes I feel very focused in all the devotional activities. Sometimes I'm not very focused. My mind is not very focused in the devotional service.
Yes, this is definitely due to aparadha. When we don't have a focused mind, what's very interesting is that when you're doing something, we all have this experience. When we're doing something that we love to do, we are very focused, right? When we derive great satisfaction from, say, for example, I'll use myself for example. I really enjoy playing soccer, right? I've always enjoyed playing soccer, football. When I'm playing football, I am 100% absorbed. 100% absorbed for the entire 90 minutes of the game. Because I'm deriving some satisfaction from it, right? If I was not absorbed, then my attention was going elsewhere. It's because I'm not deriving full satisfaction. So when we engage in spiritual activities and we are inattentive, it is obvious because we are not deriving satisfaction in this. And this is because of aparadha. But what's very interesting, and I'll try to keep this as brief as possible so others can also ask, and I hope I'll answer this to your satisfaction, is that of the 4 aparadhas, we can engage in dhamma aparadha, and we can continue engaging in dhamma aparadha, and there will really be we still gain benefits, right? If we perform commit some offenses to the holy dham, we can still derive some benefit from being in the holy dham, like the monkeys and the cows, right? If we engage or we somehow commit seva aparadha, we can continue to do seva, but it's mishra, right? It is mixed with the aparadha, so we don't get the full benefit, but there is always some benefit. We can even engage in nama aparadha, and we know from Padma Purana, nama aparadha yuknanam, namanyabaharantigam, right? When we engage in nama aparadha, it is recommended that we continue to chant. When we are chanting and we commit offenses while chanting, the rectification is to chant more. So these 3 aparadhas are like this. But it is Vaishnava aparadha where it simply has to stop. So sometimes we get lost in trying to not commit Dhamma aparad. We get lost trying to keep track of which aparads we're committing and not committing. Don't worry so much about the other 3 aparads. I mean, be mindful, be aware of them, but the key is to focus on Vaishnava aparad. That is the key. When we focus on Vaishnava aparad, then we remain in the association of devotees. When we remain in the association of devotees, they will help us. They will help us with the other aparads. The key, our primary focus should be on complete elimination of Vaishnava aparad. And then with the association of devotees, the other aparads will gradually be eliminated. And that's okay. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. It's a development. It's a growth, a maturity. But our primary focus should be on Vaishnava aparad, and they will help us in the elimination of the other aparads. And the more the aparads are eliminated, the greater our concentration will become, because we are deriving more satisfaction and happiness. We put all our satisfaction, we put all our attention where we're satisfied. Is that correct? When we really enjoy doing something, our 100% focus goes there. In the same way, when we develop this joy and satisfaction in sadhana and seva, our attention will automatically be there. But we have to eliminate aparads. And that starts with Vaishnava aparad. That must be immediately, instantaneously, no matter what, eliminated. And when we do Vaishnava aparad, which we will, even if we don't know we're doing it, we will, we must be able to ask for forgiveness.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Always Srila Prabhupada and Gurudev. Thank you very much for wonderful class and how nicely you explained Aparada. And second point, you explained that whenever you are staying, that is Sri Dham Vrindavan, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham, and especially focused on Vaishnava Aparada. Thank you very much. Koti Koti Dandavat Pranam to your seva.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. We should start from the avoiding offenses from the devotees, and then that is a very nice answer, very practical for me also. And Prabhuji, I really like the analysis of humility. You're explaining, means that 6 kind of exchanges that I never knew that. That means developing humility. To develop humility, that kind of activities will help a lot. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for your wonderful class.
Thank you all for the service.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much for giving very nice guidance. And I shall try to follow. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All close to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Prabhuji, your class was wonderful, but because of the audio quality, I couldn't pay that much attention. I wish you come back again, Prabhuji.
I'm sorry, I missed some of that. The audio quality was bad.
Wasn't good, Prabhuji, but I couldn't pay that much attention. But I know it was very wonderful class and very helpful class. So I want, if you can, please come back again, Prabhuji.
Certainly, yes, and I will try to make sure I'm in a better position so I have better connectivity and the quality is better.
I will hear recording again. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Dandavad Pranam. Prabhuji, first 15 minutes we are not able to hear. So next time keep your very near and after that we hear very nicely. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Dandavad Pranam.
Okay, yes, I will do that. Again, I apologize for that, but I'll try to make sure next time around its quality is better.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Dandavad. Prabhuji, you were mentioning about consciousness. That depend on is it depending on your offenses? It changes.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please?
The consciousness, does it like you say you were mentioning about it, and the changing in consciousness, does it depend on offenses? You know, sometimes you feel, the Mataji said you feel focused, and you know, sometimes you don't, and sometimes you are enthusiastic, and sometimes you don't, and sometimes don't feel like to engage that much, and all of that. So, does it related to offense?
Yes, it is very much. It is completely tied to offenses. It is actually. It's not too. It's easy for us to recognize this because when we are engaged in something that we enjoy doing.
Prabhuji, can I? Excuse me, Prabhuji. Are you on the speaker phone, Prabhuji?
No, I'm not.
Oh. Okay,
Is this better?
sorry, Prabhuji. Please, I feel sorry, Prabhuji. I have to say again and again, I'm sorry, Prabhuji. Please go ahead, Prabhuji.
You are able to hear me now?
Yeah. Yes.
I'm not quite sure what the problem is. I have the phone right to my mouth. Hello?
Yes, Prabhuji, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me. Oh, okay, excellent.
Thank you.
So to address the question, yes, when we are engaged in an activity that we enjoy doing, our focus and our attention to that activity is 100%. We've experienced this time and time again, even in our own, forget about spiritual life, just in our day-to-day living and the day-to-day experiences in life, when we are truly deriving great satisfaction from something, we give it our full attention. It is just the same in our spiritual activities, in our sadhana and in our seva. So when we are not giving it our full attention, when we are distracted, we are in a bad mood, it is simply because we are not experiencing satisfaction. The reason why we are not experiencing satisfaction is because we are engaged in various types of aparad, numerous types of aparad. These aparads are like dirt. They get in the way of pure experience of sadhana and seva. That is the only thing that is getting in the way of ruchi. Ruchi means taste. It is these aparads that get in the way of experiencing taste. And when we do not focus, it is because of aparads. So aparads are the key. Oftentimes we don't talk enough about aparads in our spiritual life, but aparads are the problem in our spiritual development.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. And if no one has any question or comment, you can begin here. Let's pay our obeisances to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha, kripasindhubhyeva cha